Welcome to the Chaos Commanders podcast. I'm Annie, aka Commander A, military wife, mom of two, and seasoned in navigating deployments, juggling schedules, and life's unpredictable missions.
And I'm Katelynn, aka Commander K, solo mom to a busy, neurodivergent teenage boy, business owner, and skilled chaos wrangler.
We're here for the moms who do it all, the sideline CEOs, the late night warriors, the women leading in their homes, businesses, and beyond.
If you've ever felt like you're running a tactical operation just to get through the day, this is the place for you. We're bringing raw, unfiltered conversations, honest insights, and tangible strategies to help you command the chaos like the Wonder Woman you are.
So grab your coffee, wine, or whatever keeps you going, because we're diving in.
Welcome back to the Chaos Commanders. This week, we are going to be touching on some ups and downs of military life and the TDY Curse. And if you're like me and have no idea what that is, I mean, I know now, but I didn't when Annie first mentioned it to me, stay tuned and we are going to explain it and talk about how we can support our military families during the TDY Curse. So, what's the song for this episode?
The song for this episode is American Soldier by Toby Keith.
Perfect. Perfect fit for this one. Love it.
And we owe you a book, but I can't tell you the book series that I'm reading right now.
No.
I mean, not you, but our listeners.
Yeah.
Because I don't know them very well. And we're just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
So we're going to go to What's My Snack?
Yes, that
because
sounds
I
good.
have had a very interesting craving this past week.
Okay, tell me about it.
I made up some poor man's nachos.
Poor man's nachos. Okay, so you have mentioned this to me before, and I make the same thing. But let's explain to the listeners, because I did not know. What is the difference? What are poor man nachos compared to not poor man nachos?
So poor man nachos, you make them in your microwave and you get yourself some tortillas and you sprinkle some shredded cheese all over them.
Yep.
And then you microwave them for like 30 seconds. And I put sour cream on mine and they were glorious.
Okay.
And the best part is when you're done, you like get all the little cheese bits off your plate. Make sure you get last little bits and you eat them. And they're fantastic. And I literally have not had those in like 20 years.
That's incredible. So I had those a lot growing up, and then I've made them for Katelynn. And so, yeah, just chips, shredded cheese, and whatever toppings that you want. So, okay. So in comparison, the not poor man nachos, though, what is that? What would you consider not poor man nachos?
I guess that would be like you go to a baseball game or a hockey game and you get nachos from the concession stand, right? Because those suckers are like $6 and it's runny cheese. And
yes.
That's also delicious.
Okay. So yeah, we were talking about this a little bit, and I am not a runny cheese fan so much. I mean, like, I'll eat it if I have to, but I think I prefer the at home in the microwave.
That's
think
fair.
Poor man nachos are where it's at. You can keep your runny cheese. People with money to buy expensive nachos. Okay, so my snack for this week is I discovered little mini salad kits at Target. I don't know what other stores carry them. I'm sure that other stores carry them. But as a single mom who has a kid who will not eat salad, sometimes, I mean, I'm a salad girl. I love salads. And so I don't want to have to buy a huge family size bag of salad and have it go bad.
Right.
And so I'm loving these little mini Caesar salad kits. They have ranch ones. There's not a huge variety because I think it might be a fairly new product, but they're just the perfect
It's
portion.
brilliant.
Yeah. So, and then, we make burgers at home and things like that sometimes, but I can let Caden have his side of fries and I can have my little side salad. Yeah. And I don't have to chop everything and do all the stuff, right? So it's it's an easy snack or a nice side dish for a dinner.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Ooh, I can't wait to find one of those. Although my kids do love salads.
They do. Yes.
I might not be able to partake in the mini.
Right. Yeah. You probably just need the full bag.
The jumbo family bag from Costco.
Right. All right. So what is your Annie update this week?
Oh, low budget drum roll.
Dun, 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 dun.
I used ChatGPT.
You did?
I did it.
Yay! So tell me about it. How did it go?
Well, I was curious
Yeah.
about how it all works. So
Okay.
I put in all my stats and I asked it to configure macros for like a deficit and for maintenance. And it was pretty spot on.
That's amazing.
I gotta say. So,
okay. And that makes me super happy because you have recently worked with like a nutritionist, right?
Right.
So you have like expert advice to compare this to.
And it was pretty on track with what they said.
That's so exciting.
So, yeah, very exciting. And so I'm excited to play with that a little bit more and see, like, as I've changed my workout routines up just a little bit. And so I'm curious what it says now that it's getting to know me.
Yeah.
How it wants to tweak me.
Yeah, that's super exciting. So,
but I've used it a couple more times. Our kids, we have what's called jar money, and anytime they do chores or they're out and about and they, find coins on the ground or anything, any fun money like that, birthday money, Christmas money, holiday money, they can put it in their jars. They can either put it in their savings account or they can put it in their jar. They always put it in their jar. Mm-hmm. So they can use that money for whatever they want to buy. And we have a pretty solid rule in our house that anything that's electric, we don't buy that for them because we want them to understand that when you buy it yourself, you take better care of it.
Yeah.
So those are always high ticket items. And both of them have enough money to get an electric scooter.
Ooh, that's exciting.
I used ChatGPT to start the process of a scooter contract.
Perfect, because you're going to need one.
Because with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
So I've been playing around with that a little bit. And then I also used ChatGPT for the song for today's episode.
That is amazing. You are just like becoming an expert.
I'm doing it.
You're a
invade my privacy.
Exactly.
AI.
Exactly. You know what is so funny is that when we talked about privacy last time, I know that some people just, are willing to put a lot out there, right, on ChatGPT or other AI platforms. And I saw one that I was like, oh, I don't think Annie would do this, but this is really interesting. And it was that somebody I think I was on TikTok or something, and they showed how they were using ChatGPT to get landscaping ideas for the front of their house. They just took a picture of the front of their house and posted it on there. And they said, act as a landscape designer and tell me like what I should do to my front yard.
That's awesome.
I thought that was super cool. And I mean, I guess as long as you're not giving like the exact street, which I mean, let's be real, anybody can find your address anyway.
Right,
but,
right.
It's like, I'm sure it had the house number on there and everything, but I thought, that's a really cool way to use it. So,
well, I mean, in all fairness, after we recorded that episode, we turned our children into dogs on your ChatGPT.
We did. We did. Oh my gosh. And we should put the photos on the blog.
Absolutely.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Okay. So if you're listening to this and you have already gone to the blog for ChatGPT for that episode, we're going to have to add the photos of the kids as dogs, and I'll put a post up about it or something.
If you know our kids, these dogs are spot on.
Yes, they are accurate. And Joel was not here that night, so we had to use a photo of him instead of having him like be there live to like take a new photo, but it still worked out really well.
It was perfect.
Yeah. So, very cool.
All right, what's Katelynn currently?
Oh my gosh. So I am in the throes of just adjusting to new routines and schedules and all of the mom taxi, Ubering, whatever you want to call it.
You guys are busy.
Yes. And I work full time, during the day. So trying to make sure that he gets everywhere he needs to go and just new time blocking. I've had to kind of redo some schedules, but he's got a running program that he's doing 4 days a week. I think we've kind of touched on this in our...
Touched on it. You guys, I had to make a miniature calendar of his schedule to put on my calendar because we want him to hang out with us. And I don't know when he's free.
Yep. It's hard to keep track. And, when we were talking about like summer activities and what he was going to be doing, that episode, we talked a little bit about that he was going to be doing his running program and then also this like weightlifting at school. Right. But then the kid decides that he's going to join the football team. And apparently football practice starts like now, not in August. I mean, like real football practice starts in August. before school starts still, but they also do extra practice during the summer. Yeah. So that I'm new to the football world. I've always been a no football household, and so that is new for us.
That was a fun text when she found out that she had a football player in her house. She was like, I can't even believe I said yes to this. And I'm like, yeah, go for it.
I know. And it's so weird, like being from Oklahoma, football is such a culture there. And so it's kind of weird to be anti-football, but just, for his safety. But then also I have to be reminded that like I let him do martial arts and that's not super safe.
I mean, like getting kicked in the head is no small thing.
No small thing. So yeah, just doing all of that. Like we had to go get cleats and he got his helmet and all the fun things. And so, yeah.
And Joel got to try his helmet on. And
which was really cute. So cute. We'll have to put that picture up as well if it's approved for the internet. So that was really, really cute. So yeah, just adjusting to everything. Like I said, time blocking, just trying to figure out how to get him everywhere he needs to go while I'm also trying to do everything that I need to do. And
how we can have him.
Yeah. And
we took him today and we went swimming. So that's why I need to know his schedule because he wants to come and do the playthings for summer this year. So
yes. And he's becoming I know he's been talking to you about it, becoming super obsessed with his nutrition.
Yes.
Which we do have to be careful about because of his OCD. He tends to like hyper focus on things.
Right.
And so I keep encouraging him. I'm like, just add positive things and don't worry so much about like, are you hitting exact numbers? Because he can get a little, overboard with obsessing about that. So yeah, he's trying to add in some protein and this and that. So we've been, in all of the chaos of everything transportation wise, also like, Mom, I want new groceries, on my list. And then, I've got to eat like a football player now.
Right. Good luck feeding him. Woo.
Right. Yeah. So that's been fun. So anyway, well, let's dive into the meat of the episode, which is the TDY curse. So talk to me and our listeners about
Talk to me, Goose.
What does this mean? What is it? What's the TDY curse?
So many people know it as the deployment curse, and then you can throw it out there as the TDY curse. TDY is temporary duty. So TDY season typically is in the summer.
Okay.
Because there isn't enough going on in the summer in the military world. That's typically when all the PCSs or the permanent change of station, the moving happens for military families.
Yep.
So the TDY curse and the deployment curse is really something quite special.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that happen when your soldier is away, right?
Okay.
And they're the things that can probably happen while your soldier is with you too, but they always just seem to happen when your soldier is not there with you.
Yeah.
And when you're in the game, as long as I've been in, you come to expect it. Like it's not, is this going to happen? It's when is this going to happen? And I don't mean to be a pessimist about it. It is definitely when is this going to happen?
Right.
And so you got to bear witness to that.
I did.
Yep. So my husband was home for a couple of months. He had surgery and he was getting ready to leave to go back to where he's stationed. And I was getting a little angsty as things were getting closer and closer to him leaving. And I think I even sat you down and was like, I just want to know what's going to break the second he leaves.
Yep.
And I feel like you were even like, oh, don't think like that. Like, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be great.
Yes. And I remember that you and I had that conversation and then we were here for dinner and he made a comment. You made a comment about, I'm just wondering what is going to break. I was just telling Katelynn about this. I wonder what is going to break when you leave this time. And he was like, well, I hate to tell you, but I think it's going to be the dishwasher. And he pointed out something that was wrong with the dishwasher.
Yes, there is like something chipped off of the dishwasher. Well, folks, I am happy to report that the dishwasher is still running just fine. But I think he was an hour down the road. You were over at my house.
Yep.
And Katelynn discovered that the toilet in our basement was leaking.
Yes.
But thank goodness Katelynn was here because she was like, let me go look at that thing. And she didn't fix it, but she like got the water turned off, and it's the tank that was leaking. So not a huge ordeal. It would have been had Katelynn not pointed it out, though, because it was leaking onto the floor, and we rarely use the basement toilet. The basement bathroom is kind of like Andre's space. Like, I feel like he's the one that uses it the most in the house, because when he's working, he works in the basement. When he works from home, he works in the basement. So I wouldn't have noticed that for a really long time. So it all worked out really well. I was really thankful for that. But like, Katelynn's like, I've got this. And I'm like,
my
no.
gosh. Well, I could see the sheer panic on your face when Katelynn came up and was like, the toilet's leaking. And then I knew we had just had that conversation, and you know, I am not a plumber. I tend to be a little bit of a Mrs. Fix-It, because I'm the man of the house at my house. And so I've got to fix everything. But I mean, I was not going to be able to fix that. It looked like it was like a seal.
It was, yes. So it's fixed now. Andre was able to fix it. It was not that big of a deal. We had to get the water out of the tank. And once we did that, it was fine. So on the scale of 0 to 10, 0 being the easiest, 10 being the hardest, we were probably like at a 1.
Yeah. So
I was thankful for that.
Lucky that time.
Lucky that time.
You have had some experiences in the past that were not so lucky, that were a little more catastrophic.
Yes. So I rank this one, you know, it's a good one for as we are going on this downward hill towards retirement.
Yep.
I will take it. I will take the leaking toilet.
Exactly. No, and didn't you say that Jen, your neighbor, we're mutual friends with her.
Yes.
She kind of was like, what are you even talking about? Right? Like, what do you mean things go wrong?
So we've been neighbors for 4 years now, and we quickly became friends, and she's kind of been along with me on this ride here of all the things that can happen. There hasn't been a deployment since we've been in this house, but there's been a lot of Andre not living with us since we've lived in this house. And in the beginning, she was kind of like, oh, well, you know, things just happen, and he's gone a lot, so it's just going to happen. And I'm like, yeah, but it like always happens within 48 hours of him leaving. And, you know, we just kind of laughed about it. Well, then she started realizing that, like, this is, like, an actual thing. The way that we live right now is considered geobatching, where he lives somewhere else and the family stays here. So this is the TDY, the deployment, the geobatching curse, right?
Yep.
So Andre was home, and he was leaving again, and Jen was like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, we're good. And then 15 minutes after he leaves, my car won't start.
Oh my goodness.
And I go over and I knock on her door, and I'm like, hey, guess what? She's like, what? I'm like, my car won't start. She's like, oh my gosh, Annie, like, you can't even make this stuff up. I'm like, no, I can't. Like, he's down the road, not even out of the city.
Yep.
And my car won't start. So yeah, it's that sweet little like 48-hour window, but what's going to happen?
Right. Yeah. And that's so tough. And I was telling you that when the toilet situation happened, your mom, you know, I mentioned to her that I was like, I feel so bad because she was so worried about what was going to break as soon as he left. And she kind of said the same thing, like, well, it's life. Things happen, you know, blah, blah, blah. And she said something about that, you know, she was sure that I had experienced things like that as well. But I told her, I was like, as a single mom who is a single mom full time, all the time, you know, I'm always the man of the house. Like, there is no other spouse to count on or lean on or whatever. And so, like, I don't have that back and forth, because you have to go back and forth.
Right.
Between you're the man of the house when he's gone, responsible for all the things.
Right.
And then when he's home, you know, he can do those things.
Yes.
And so it's like,
I can breathe.
Yes. And you have someone to rely on, and someone who can be a help, and someone who's handy, right?
Right.
And so it's like, man, could these things break while he's home?
Right.
And not
like
when
you
he
were
leaves.
home for X amount of weeks recovering. Like, couldn't this have happened like the day before? You looked great. Everything was fine with you. You could have fixed this.
Exactly.
Why didn't it happen? I mean, maybe it was happening the day before. We should have noticed it. So.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so I mean, I feel for you and everybody who has to go through that, because it's just one of those things where you're just like, really just my luck. This is, you know, just what I needed right now, you know, and it's really not, because this is a hard time for people. So,
well, and it's funny too, because Andre says often, he's like, you know, the things that you think about are the things that are going to happen. And it's like, I believe that too, but it's also like, you just kind of hold your breath and wait. When things have happened this consistently every single time, like it's hard not to put your mind in that space. And so you're right, honey. Okay, you're right.
Oh, goodness. So
the deployment curse, man, that thing is brutal, because it feels like the hits just come, right? So you have your things that are just going to break naturally, and when they're deployed, it's just that much harder to feel like, oh, what am I going to ever catch a break throughout this deployment? Man, I tell you, when Andre was on his deployment several years ago, Raina was 4, Joel was 2. Man, everything happened. We were renting a house. The heater was going haywire in that house. Fortunately, like, we didn't have to worry about paying for stuff like that, but you still have to worry about, like, we lost our heat in the middle of the night on a very cold night.
Yeah.
There was nothing we could do. So anyways, that deployment, Joel had a couple of peanut exposures on that deployment. He was sent to the ICU for acute respiratory failure. That was a really tough phone call, to call Andre, who's 7,000 miles away on the other side of the world, and tell him, I don't know what we're looking at right now, but our son is really, really sick. Oh. And I mean, Andre doesn't break down very often. And that was, fortunately, I was in a headspace where I was like, it's okay. Like, do what you need to do. I have already broken down several times to my family. I mean, everything ultimately ended up being okay. But man, when you have stuff like that, he could not come back. Like, it was one of those situations where Joel would literally have needed to be dying in order for him to come back. Yeah. For that. So I'm so glad that he wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. But still, like, even though it wasn't that severe, I'm sure any parent, when they're, you know, away from their child and their child is struggling with something like that, and you just feel like your hands are tied, that has to be the worst feeling, because there's just absolutely nothing that you can do, but there's nowhere else you'd rather be than with them. So that's really tough.
They were talking about intubation and all of those things. And so it was pretty scary moments. But he did good. He came back from that and he was all right. But it's not funny, but it is funny, because this is like the most epic of deployment curse. Joel had a peanut exposure. It was on my dad's birthday. So we rushed to the emergency room. We spent several hours in the emergency room. He has his rebound. Joel will have a reaction, and then his rebound from that reaction ends up being worse. And so that's kind of what we have to go through when we go to the emergency room for that. So we get through all of that. We end up going back to my parents' house to celebrate my dad's birthday. And as if we didn't have enough going on that night, I get the kids to bed, and we have a bat in the house.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to catch a bat after all of that. So,
oh my gosh.
Yes, I can't make it up.
You cannot. How did you go about catching this bat?
It was fortunately flying around in my bathroom. And it must have, bats have sonar? Yes, bats have sonar. And so it kind of was lost in the bathroom. Everything kind of echoes in the bathroom, and it had gotten into our shower. And by the time I got in there, it was down on the ground. Okay. Or the floor of the shower. And so I had this like wide, tall vase, and I slammed the vase down over it. And then I went and got a miniature cookie sheet, and I like slid it underneath the vase. It was a whole thing. But then by the time I caught it, I was so stressed and panicked. And anyways, by the time I caught it, I was like, Well, this is kind of cool. This is a learning experience. So I woke Raina up and I'm like, hey, do you want to see a bat? And she starts screaming. And I'm like, but don't scream because your brother's sleeping. But do you want to see it? And she's like, yeah, I think.
That is amazing.
We turned it into a teaching experience. If you know me and the things I do with my children, it's always a learning experience.
Yes, this is not shocking at all.
Nope. It's like 11 o'clock at night. We're learning about bats and how we're going to release this thing. And
that is incredible.
So yeah, that is the TDY curse, the deployment curse, the geobatch curse. There it is.
There it is. Okay, so now we know what it's all about, and I have recently heard that we have 1,800 soldiers in Iowa that either are being or have already been deployed.
Yep.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, how are you feeling about it? And I would love to just kind of chat about how, as people like myself who are not in the military, how we can support our neighbors, our friends, our community, everyone who might be dealing with this whole TDY curse thing right now.
Right. So yeah, it's near and dear to my heart. As soon as I heard about it, it's like, ooh, man, we know what that's like. I would say that the best thing to do if you personally know a family, checking in on them. And now, yes, check in on them now, but even like set reminders on your calendar every, once a month or once every 2 weeks, check in on so-and-so and see how they're doing. It was always so nice when friends would check in on me and, hey, how you doing? We're not doing great.
Yeah.
It might look like it. We might be putting on the happy face and things look great. It's like it's the Facebook and the Instagram posts, right? Like everything's great and happy.
Yep.
But it's hard to have your person on the other side of the world and you don't know, even if it's considered a safe zone, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Right? And it's really hard and you don't sleep well and you don't function well. And, if you have kids, you're trying to support them through it because they're not doing well.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I love that you mentioned the kind of Instagram, Facebook highlight reel thing. Because, that is what we typically see of our neighbors, friends, community. And it's really worth asking, okay, but like, how are you really? Right?
Right.
Not just how are you, but how are you really? Because we don't see all of what's going on underneath the survival mode that might be showing up on Instagram and Facebook, on the social feeds and everything. You're seeing highlights of the things that they're doing to keep their kids happy and entertained and busy and distracted and whatever. But then, when you go home at night and the day is done, like the emotions that you're dealing with and, the moms need someone to talk to and to just feel seen, I think.
Right. And, phrasing things. So instead of saying, how are you doing? Which, that's a great thing to ask. But,
Sure.
What was the best part of your week?
Yeah.
What was the hardest part of your week? What's one thing that could happen? One realistic thing that could happen that would make next week better?
Yeah.
So, asking those more intimate questions to get them to open up a little bit.
Yeah.
About what's going on.
Absolutely. Have you ever had anybody kind of thinking about do's and don'ts? Have you ever had anybody say anything to you that was not helpful? So, for example, like, you signed up for this.
Ooh, those are fighting words. And I get it. I get what people mean when they say that. We did sign up for this, but that's when I'm like, so when you buy a car and you get in a car wreck with that car, well, you signed up for that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So that's not really a fair question. Like, yes, I think as a military spouse, we all know it can happen, but
yeah, exactly. And just like what you're saying with the car thing is like, okay, yes, driving every day is a risk,
right.
There's different things that we do every day that is a risk that you could look at it as like, oh, well, you signed up for XYZ that were associated with this thing that you chose to do. Right. But I just think it's so important to remember that everything we do in life has risk and has hard things that are involved. I mean, we could say the same thing about motherhood, right? When we're when we're in the trenches of motherhood, we could all look at each other and be like, well, you signed up for this. You signed up for no sleep. You signed up for toddler tantrums. You signed up for attitudes of teenagers, whatever it may be.
You signed up for that grocery bill.
Exactly. But it doesn't negate the fact that it's still hard and that your feelings are still valid and you love who you love, right? So, yeah, you signed up to marry someone who is in the military, but that doesn't mean that you don't get to feel all the feelings that are associated with what that means for your life and your kids' lives.
Right.
So,
And asking for help is really hard. It's hard just in general.
Yeah.
So I would say when you're reaching out to these families or your friend or whoever, try to get in there and see, what do they need help with? Calling me and asking me, what do you need help with? I'm probably not going to tell you anything. I'm going to tell you everything's great. There are people out there that will tell you what they need help with, and God bless them. I wish I could be more like that. I really do, because I think it's important to be able to ask for help. I am working on that. I don't like to burden people. And I think a lot of people feel like they don't want to burden people. So it's hard to know what you need when somebody asks you that question, because you need a lot of things.
Yeah. So,
maybe call and be like, do you want to do a coffee date? Can I come over and bring some coffee to you? If you can afford to do it. I want to give you a meal this week. What day of the week is the best? And give me some options of things that you like. We have a family that lives right around the corner from us, and they will text me every now and then and be like, we are having this meal and we would love for you to join us. Please let us know if you can. Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
That is that changes my whole week when I don't have to think about a meal.
Yeah.
And my kids can play with their kids and I can visit with adults. And so things like that are really, really helpful and just kind of make you feel seen.
Yeah. And it doesn't put the burden of figuring out what you need on you, right? Because and that could be for this situation or any other situation where you're asking someone what do you need? What can I do for you? That is very well intentioned, but it also puts an additional thing on the person who already needs help, because now they're like, oh my gosh, I have to figure out what to say that I need help with. And then also I am going to hesitate, right? Because I'm I don't know what the person asking me is capable of helping with, And so then you have to come up with options. What are some free options? What are some low cost options? What are some low effort options? Because you don't know how much time they have, where it's if that person can come to you and already have ideas, some suggestions of ways that they feel like they might be able to help, then I feel like that kind of takes the burden off of you and you don't have to, kind of be your own hero in this situation. So yeah, it's a catch-22 when you're wanting to help someone, but asking how you can help is usually not the most helpful.
Right. Well, and again, my neighbor Jen, she has reached out to me several times and she's like, hey, I'm going to this store. Do you need anything?
Yeah.
And there have been times that, yes, I have needed something and she's grabbed it for me, and it just saves me that time of physically going there and getting it. And so those are all great things.
Yeah. And don't you have a neighbor that shovels your sidewalk for you?
Yes. God bless him. Tom we have this giant walking path behind our house that feels like it's 2 miles long. It's not. I am super over exaggerating, but it's really wide.
Yeah.
So you have to do several passes on it, and he does it. And it's so helpful when it's snowing, and I just know that I don't have to go out there and do it. So thank you, Tom. I'm not sure if you're listening, but I appreciate you so much.
Yes, and for anybody who does not live in snowy Iowa, I did not know when I moved here that this was a thing that you had to do, because in Oklahoma we get tornadoes and then we get ice.
Right.
We don't get a lot of snow. And there's no shoveling. You don't have to shovel anything. So this is like a new concept to me. I'm like, you have to do what within what time frame?
Yeah, you get 24 hours.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah. I do not want to do that. So yeah, as like a mom who is on your own when your spouse is deployed, having a neighbor who's willing to help you out with something like that when you're trying to wrangle the kiddos and get all the other things done is so helpful.
Yes.
So that is amazing. Bless him for doing that for you.
What?
So what about your kids? What about talking to your kids about upcoming deployments or things like this? Whenever the temporary duty is going to happen, how do you prepare them for all of this? And how can your community support your kids as well?
Sure, yeah. So my friend Marissa will tell you I am the queen of countdowns. We lived together for several months. Maybe it was a couple of years. Anyways, I would always have a paper chain countdown for everything.
I love it.
So a lot of times she'll roast me and be like, what are we counting down now?
Yeah.
So right now we have my friend Amy and Indy sent us a while back. She sent us a countdown board, which I didn't have that through Andre's deployment, but we've had it these last 4 years.
Yeah.
And it has been amazing. We set it every time he leaves, and we know ballpark. Sometimes we will always overshoot the countdown versus like it's at 0 and Dad's still not home.
Okay.
Versus like that kind of a situation. But we count down every time. In between when we get to see him, and it's so helpful. It just like kind of gets everybody's mind. It's helpful for me too.
Yeah.
So we have that going currently. But when he was getting deployed, we had what I called a deployment wall.
Okay.
And it was an entire wall in our house that was geared towards, again, mom that teaches everything. So it was all geared towards the deployment. But my kids were young enough that we got to learn how to tell time. We got to learn how to read a map. We got to learn about flags. So there was a lot of teaching opportunities there. So on this wall, we had 2 different clocks. We had the clock with our current time, and we had the clock with his time, which that was kind of more for me because then I knew when I could call him.
Right.
Like, what time is it there?
Yeah.
I mean, by the middle of the deployment, the 13 hour, like you got the math and you're good. But those clocks were very helpful.
Yeah.
We had the flag for the United States, and then where he was deployed, we had a map so we could show the kids how far away he was. We also had a globe so they could really see that in perspective too, like, oh, he really is on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And then we had not 1, not 2, but 3 countdowns.
Ooh,
going.
Okay. Do explain. What are these 3 countdowns about?
We had a daily countdown, a weekly countdown, and a monthly countdown. And I broke that out. The daily was like a year calendar, that like a miniature version of that, all laid out so they could see like, this is the month of March, this is the month of April, this is the month. So every day that he was gone, we were also looking at the date, right? Learning the dates and the days of the week. And so each day Raina was old enough and big enough that on these little tiny calendars, she could cross off the days. Okay. So we had that going. And then when the month was over, Joel would cross the month off.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because it was bigger.
Yeah.
So we had that daily countdown going. And then we had a weekly countdown, which was a paper chain. And I turned that into a rainbow on the opposite wall and had like little clouds on the wall. And then each week they would rip one of those off. And both of them got to participate in that, which was really fun. I have all kinds of pictures of the weekly tear.
Yeah.
And then we had a monthly, and that was a big one. I looked up a whole bunch of different cool adventure things to do in Iowa or near Iowa that were like manageable, but they were like the big prize, right?
Yep.
And so I had little envelopes attached to another monthly calendar that I had made. So that was like your regular monthly calendar, right? So you tear off that page. But then attached to the bottom of it was their prize. And so they would open their envelope and then we would go do like some big thing. Like we went to the Children's Museum in Iowa City, and we had a trip to the Omaha Zoo planned. Now, COVID threw a wrench in a lot of that stuff. Towards the tail end of our countdown, we lost our countdown. We no longer had a countdown, and it got really crazy. But in the perfect world, we would have done one of our activities was going ice fishing.
Oh,
so my dad took the kids and I ice fishing.
Yeah.
That was super duper fun. So just things like that didn't even have to cost a ton of money. It was just an adventure.
Yeah. Things for them to look forward to and be excited about. I love that. Yeah. That's amazing. So what are some, aside from the things that you were doing with the kids to prepare them and get them through it, what would be some helpful things for their friends, their teachers, schools, anybody in the community that wants to support kiddos whose families are going through this time? How can they support?
Well, I highly recommend that teachers know what's going on, because our kids are not going to be their best selves 100% of the time. And this is going to be this underlying factor that we can't remove, right? Like, I don't want to use it as a crutch or an excuse, but also, like, can we give them a little bit of grace? Checking in with them. Like, they're the ones that see them on a very, very regular basis. So again, asking those questions, like, is there anything that's happening this week that's really hard for you?
Yeah.
Instead of, how are you doing? Because especially kids, like, there are no kids that are like, oh, this is how I'm doing.
Right. They don't know how to put all of that into words, especially when it's really big feelings, no matter how old they are.
Right. I would say if you are a civilian family and your kids have a friend whose parent is deployed or if their parent is deployed, maybe talk to them about not asking some of those hard questions. Like, I mean, Andre wasn't deployed, but we weren't living together, and Raina was at school one day, and this was a couple of years ago, and there was, believe it or not, some unrest in the world, and it had made national news. And the next day at school, she had a handful of friends who had asked her if her dad was going to get deployed. Oh. And she came home from school and she was in tears, terrified. Well, we haven't seen Daddy in 3 weeks, and I'm so scared that he's going to get deployed. And I mean, kids talk, they hear things and they talk. But, if you know that your kiddo's friend's parent is being deployed, that's a good conversation to have with them. Like, hey, make sure that we're being a little bit more sensitive about what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially because even thinking about that, your kid might not be the one, like, if you've informed them, your kid might not be the one who would say something like that to their friend, right? Like, they're not going to be the one to bring it up. But if you make sure that your kid is informed, then when other kids who may not be informed, they might have heard something on the news, they might have heard their parents talking about something, and then if it comes up in group conversation, there's one other person that can kind of stand up for that military kiddo, right? And they can say, no, guys, that's not what's happening. Right. My mom told me blah, 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 right? And so just having them be able to stand up for them. And it kind of makes me think of some of the training that the teachers do around, we've kind of moved away from saying, like, for Mother's Day, like, that it's always for like, when they're doing art projects or things like that it's for their mom, or Father's Day, that it's for their dad. One of the things that as a single mom I appreciated was that they would often say it's for your special adult in your life, because, let's say it's Father's Day. Well, my kid doesn't celebrate Father's Day. I mean, he says he's going to because he says I deserve it. But, he told me
And you do?
Well, thank you very much. There's a lot of controversy about, a single mom and if they should celebrate Father's Day or not, because you're not really the dad. But point of that being that, my son, he acknowledges me on Father's Day because he doesn't have his father around. And so, if he was at school and everything was about your dad, that can feel sensitive to a child. Sure. And so the fact that they are able to, kind of adapt it and be like, it can be your dad, it can be your grandpa, it can be your uncle, it could be your mom, like whoever is your special person for this time that we're making this project for. And so I think that because they're able to do that for families that look different, military families should be included in that.
Right.
Military families can look different. Parents are not always home all the time for those special holidays. And let's also maybe acknowledge that when there are sensitive things going on in the world, I think that, I realize it's putting a lot on schools and teachers and stuff, but if they're already talking about those other things, that's something that could easily be added into that. Where we're talking about, when there's big things going on in the world and we have military families, let's not ask super sensitive questions like that. So, it's a piece of education, and it helps because they're all right there and they can talk about it versus individual parents having to talk to their kids. So I think that would be helpful.
And a lot of things we talk about in this house is that a you worry or is that a mom worry?
Right.
Is that a kid worry or is it a grown-up worry? Because I think that these kids try to take on some big, heavy stuff and they don't need to.
Yeah.
It's just, they need to be kids. And so we do a lot of, I always tell them I'm an open book. You can ask me whatever you want. But some of their questions, I'm like, now, whose worry is that for?
Yep, absolutely.
And then I always get a big smile and,
yeah,
I will never lie to them.
Yeah.
But there are things that they don't need to burden themselves with.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you say that to them and the way that you have phrased that and just help them identify, is that something that I can let mom, handle and I don't need to carry that. So very cool. I love it. All right. So as we wrap this up today, is there anything else that you feel like you want to share that would be important for people to know about the TDY Curse?
Do you guys have 4 hours for this episode? No. I can't think of anything that's jumping out. I mean, if I do, we'll add it to a post or something.
Yeah,
but
we can always add it to the blog.
If you are a family of the soldiers that are being deployed, have been deployed, I am thinking about you. I am praying for you. I would love to know who you are. So when we drop this episode up on the socials, private message us if you don't want people to know who you are, because I would love to connect with you. I would love to support you in some way, shape, or form. And I am thinking about you, and you are made to do hard things. You will get through this. You will look back on it and it will define your life. Like you will measure this to everything else that you do in life. And you're a rock star.
Absolutely. So. And we appreciate you.
We appreciate you. Thank you for your service and your soldier's service.
All right. I think that whether you're a civilian family or military family, this information was super valuable for both sides.
Well, thank you.
And very educational. And I spend a lot of time with you and Andre and your kids, and I even learned things from just having this conversation with you. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with our listeners.
Also want to say, if you have a deployment coming up or you're currently in a deployment and you want to do a deployment wall, reach out. I'm telling you, reach out, and I will try to give you all of the resources that I can for that. If you don't want to do it, we can figure out something.
Yeah.
So, but it's very valuable for the children. It was valuable for myself. Like, who doesn't love a good countdown? And 3 of them.
Exactly. Well, you're brilliant. You have amazing ideas, and I'm so excited that you got to share this with our listeners. Okay, so we will see you next week. Not see you. We're not going to see you. I wish we could see everyone.
We could see you.
But we will be back next week with Go Take a Hike. We're going to talk about hiking.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited about it.
I am too.
All right, Chaos Crew, that's a wrap for today. If you loved this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow commanders.
Don't forget, we're all in this together. Join the conversation in our Chaos Commanders community on Instagram and Facebook, where we keep it real, raw, and ridiculously fun.
Remember, our fears establish the limits of our lives, so go push past them.
And always leave others better than you found them.